Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new video on the channel. And today guys, I'm going to be continuing our AFL 2023 round previews. Let's go ahead, hop right into things. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start off with a little round review. The Blues won by 8 versus the Cats. Start off round 2. The Lions won by 11 over the Demons. The Pies won by 71 over the Power. The Tigers beat the Crows by 32. The Saints beat the Dogs by 51. North Melbourne beat the Dockers by 1 singular point. The Swans smashed the Hawks by 81. The Bombers won over the Suns by 28. And the Eagles beat the Giants by 19. And this is the ladder heading into round number 3. Alright, here we go. Let's go ahead and start with the round 3 previews. To Thursday night is the Western Bulldogs versus Brisbane, and the Western Bulldogs, will start with them. I tell you, they need to respond. Their first 2 games, they lost by 50 to the Demons and 51 to the Saints. They haven't been able to score as well, scoring 65 and 41 in those games, kicking more behinds than goals on both those occasions as well. They have been extremely disappointing, I felt like, this year, especially when they probably would have been seen to at least have a win by now, and their draw in the next couple of weeks is really hard. So the Western Bulldogs, this is a really big game for them, and I feel like, to be completely honest, the Dogs have just got to show something in this game, whether it be contending or something. They've just got to do something this game to actually prove they might be able to win this week or next week or something like that. They've just got to show they can get a win on the board very soon. Otherwise, their season could be over before they even register a win. The Lions, on the other hand, round 1 was poor. Round 2 was a great week last week versus the D's. They lost it. They just lost their mojo late after the lights went out. But on the whole, though, for those first, for pretty much the entire game, except the last 10 minutes, they were very good. So I'm expecting a Brisbane win here. I've tipped them by 23. Friday night, Collingwood versus Richmond at the MCG. This is a massive game. Both these two sides have looked decent this year. The Pies have looked really good. The Tigers have looked also pretty good, especially in their win over Adelaide. They looked really good, really experienced towards the end. Collingwood, 125, 135 this year. That's the amount of points they've scored. 125 versus Geelong, 135 versus the Power. I see them scoring over 100 again this game. I think this is going to be an absolute cracking game. But I have said the Pies for a 14-point win. Hawthorn versus North Melbourne is the first game on the Saturday. And it's Alistair Clarkson going up against the team he used to coach in Hawthorn. Hawthorn have gone all-out rebuild mode so far, and that is why they are on the bottom of the ladder at the moment with a poor percentage. North Melbourne are 2-0 to start the year. Should they win this, they go 3-0, and oh man, I tell you, this gives them a good look this year. This gives them a very good look this year. Yes, you could say their draw, they had West Coast, Fremantle, Hawthorn. Their draw in the first couple rounds are definitely favourable, and I think a lot of people probably did see them going 2-1 to start the year, probably losing to the Dockers. However, they beat the Dockers in an upset win, and I reckon they'll win this by 17 points and go 3-0 to start the year for North. That's crazy. GWS versus Carlton is a Saturday twilight game at Giants Stadium, and the Giants last week versus the Eagles looked pretty poor after their very good round 1 win versus the Crows. They did have a lot of players out, however, a couple of their stars out, and should be able to get them back this week, I'd assume. The Blues, on the other hand, they have been good to start the year, but I do want to say one thing real quick about the Blues, though, is that if they are up by 1 point at three-quarters time, I feel like they might actually lose the game. Their last quarters this year, especially against Geelong and Richmond, haven't been too great. They haven't played as well. They've played really good three-quarters. Their last quarter, though, has been a little bit shaky so far. That's the only thing I'd recommend Carlton to fix up. But other than that, though, I feel like if they can play real solid 4 quarters here, they could be in for a pretty nice win. I've said them by 32. I feel like they get the job done pretty comfortably. The Saints' 150th anniversary game is on Saturday night versus the Bombers, and it is a massive clash for them. Both these two sides 2-0 to start the year, so they have both looked really good. However, for the loser, they will lose their first game this year, and I can tell you this is going to be a really big and a really exciting contest on the Saturday night, and I reckon there'll be plenty of people which will pack the MCG to see this one. Now, the Bombers and the Saints probably have looked better. I reckon they've had a tougher draw to start the year. They have the Dockers and the Dogs. I feel like they were actually tipped before the year started to actually lose both those games. However, they've won both of them to go 2-0. I feel like this does give them a real belief and a real sniff for finals this year. They are an undermanned side, as we know so far, and they've beaten two pretty decent opponents, although their two teams which have won actually haven't started the year off greatly, but they've still beaten two sides which were relatively good last year. The Bombers, on the other hand, they've played Hawthorn and Gold Coast, two games they actually were expected to win at the start of the year. So I feel like, just going with the safer tip here, I'm going to say the Saints to win in their 150th game. Port Adelaide versus Adelaide, also Saturday night, is a showdown. Two big Saturday night games here. And I tell you, this is a really big showdown. Both these two sides have had their moments to start the year. They've had their questionable moments. The Crows, they've been inaccurate, and they would have actually won both their games had they kicked more straight. I reckon they would have beaten the Giants and the Tigers had they actually kicked more straight, and they would have won the game. So just definitely disappointing there to see that the Crows haven't been able to convert. They're like the Fremantle, just can't convert. And sometimes accuracy will cost you games, and they've definitely learnt that the hard way. They're 0-2 to start the year. Port Adelaide got absolutely thumped by a great Collingwood side last week before and then in round one they absolutely thumped the Lions. So they've come off of a season which has had some mixed news so far for them. I feel like if Adelaide go a little bit taller in the forward line, they actually could get the job done, because Port Adelaide's defenders are undersized. I feel like this is a really exciting game, and I feel like the loser really will lose in this one. And if it's the Crows, they go 0-3. If it's the Power, they go 1-2. I feel like this is a really big showdown this time. They're relatively very close, so I'm sticking close. Power by 10. Gold Coast versus Geelong is the first game on the Sunday at Heritage Bank Stadium. Gold Coast need to win. They absolutely have to. They've got to revive their season, and the loser goes 0-3. Gold Coast and Geelong, you'd be expecting them to be right up the top. Gold Coast, everybody expects them to make finals this year, so the loser's going to be going 0-3, which is a really interesting start to the year. Geelong, I just feel like they'll get the job done. I feel like they'll get the job done comfortably by 33 points. I've skipped ahead to that one relatively quickly. But look, I just feel like the Suns have looked disappointing so far this year. I don't think they'll be able to show anything in this game. And yeah, I feel like the Cats will finally record their first win of the year. Melbourne versus Sydney is a massive game at the MCG. Two sides which have actually started off the year pretty well. D's 1-1 after losing in a very disappointing game to the Lions, and then the week prior smashing the Bulldogs. Without Max Gawn for at least another 4 weeks, so that is definitely a big blow. They could still be without him for another 6 or 7 though as well. So yeah, there's mixed news around Melbourne. They'd be hoping to have him back in 4, might be 5, might be 6. And if things are still troubling him, could be later. The Swans, they've looked so good to start this year. Their young talent is so exciting. I feel like they could really drive them places this year, really take them places. And I feel like they could be one of the, I reckon, so far this year, we've only had 2 rounds, but so far this year they are one of the premiership favourites. And pulling off this win would be absolutely massive, and it would see the D's go 1-2 as well, which is a really big thing. I reckon the Swans get the job done by 11 in a really close game, but I do tell you, this is a really big game as well, because I'd be expecting these two sides to be in September this year. Fremantle versus West Coast at Optus Stadium is the last game. It is the derby, and this is probably a bigger derby than we've had in the past couple of years. We know West Coast owned the derbies. Fremantle have currently won them back over the past couple of years, and they've been good, and the Eagles not so much. This year, though, both these two sides are entering the derby, one on a win, one on a loss. West Coast win over the Giants. They didn't play great in that 3rd and 4th quarter, but still managing to get the job done in the end. 19-point win. I feel like West Coast did deserve a bigger win, but they still got the job in the end, and 4 points is 4 points. The Dockers 0-2 to start the year. Just like the showdown, big stakes on this game. The loser, if it's the Dockers, go 0-3. If it's the Eagles that lose, the Dockers get their first win. They both are 1-2. So this is a really big contest. And look, I don't think I'm going to go the upset. I think I'm going to stay at safe, and I do feel like the Dockers will win their first game of the year. But if the Dockers were to go 0-3, oh boy, that'd be insane. That'd be crazy after how well they did last year. That'd be crazy to see them 0-3. Alright, now if you want to see my margins for every single game, make sure to go ahead and check out my AFL 2023 Round 3 predictions. And while you're over there, if you haven't already, make sure to enter the margin comp. Anyway, though, This is the ladder after round 3 with the margins. So again, make sure to go ahead and check out the tipping if you want to see the margins. And I also do display the ladder in the tipping as well. But yeah, here's the ladder. And yeah, if you want to actually see it, make sure to pause it. And we are very close to 550 subscribers, by the way. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. So thank you guys, all so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. So thank you guys, and then miss another video on the channel. Thank you guys, all so much. Inspire everyone. Flaming Footy out.